Hi, thank you all for joining us today for this workshop, Infant Safety Tips for New Parents, Grandparents, and Caregivers, presented by Sherri Hannan, SafeKids Coordinator Coalition for UK Healthcare. Sherri, would you like to introduce yourself and get started?
Sure. Um, Again, I'm Sherri Hannan. I'm a registered nurse with the Kentucky Children's Hospital. I coordinate this Safe Kids Fayette County Injury Prevention Coalition, which is led by the Kentucky Children's Hospital. Okay, so we will get started. I was asked to present today about infant safety. So this is all related to kind of that stage of growth and development. If you have questions, we'll take some at the end. I'm going to kind of go through this rather quickly so we can cover a lot of content. But certainly I am around if afterwards you have questions or you just need clarification about something that we are discussing today. So when you have a child, you want to make sure that you have your checklist of all of these like important spaces and environments. So appropriate car seat, a safe sleep space, do a room to room, child proofing in your home, making certain that medications and cleaning products are stored up and away. You have your first aid kit. It's always good to learn CPR and choking rescue, and just having all of those emergency contact numbers, whether that's, other caregivers to contact in case of an emergency, the pediatrician, the poison control center, any kind of important numbers like that. So we're going to start talking about different injury risk areas. We're going to start with preventing falls and tip overs. Falls is the leading cause of non-fatal injuries for kids. And if you think about that, especially with this infant age group, typically as a small infant, they may fall from wherever they are placed. So just being very cognizant and intentional about using safety straps, making sure that, babies aren't put on like the tops of tables, couches and places like that where they could row, or just even, fussing and being active can kind of scoot themselves off. But the new recommendation is that you avoid baby walkers, especially if you have stairs in your home. Stationary centers are okay, but we want to avoid baby walkers. You want to use safety gates. If you have stairs, you want to have them at the bottom and the top of the stairs. If you are one that enjoys, and especially in the spring and the fall, your windows open for fresh air, making sure that you don't put cribs and any kind of furniture in front of windows where children, may, if they are, jumping, playing around, that they could fall out of a window. There's typically a 4-inch rule about not opening a window any wider than that, and just remembering that screens keep bugs out, not kids in. Secure children when seated, so high chairs, swings, any kind of vibrating bouncy chair, even shopping carts and things like that. Just making sure whenever you have those safety straps that you use them so that the child cannot move and fall out. Preventing slips, so making sure that as they start to maybe pull up and take those first steps, that you may want to purchase some of those little socks that have the padding gripper things on the bottom of them, so that they don't slip and slide on hardwood floors or tile, things like that. Be very careful in the bathtub because, of course, wet, and then all the soap, it can be very slippery. And then TV and furniture tip overs, making sure that things like that in your home are anchored. New products now have to come with an anchoring system with them. So you want to make sure that those are actually used. And a lot of people think, oh, this is too heavy. A child couldn't pull this over. But certainly when children climb and open drawers to use them as steps, so to speak, those things can tip and could be a crushing injury for a child if that were to fall on top of them. So just things to think about around the house. We always want to be sure that we consider all the dangers around water. So if your child is around any type of water, you don't want to be distracted. You want to stay with them at all times. You want to have them within arm's reach. Your water heater needs to be set no higher than 120 degrees. And of course, even at that temperature, you still want to always check the water before bathing a child by like dipping your elbow into the water. And it should just be lukewarm. Just remember, a young child's skin is very thin. And so burning can happen more rapidly and with, lower with higher temperatures. So something that's comfortable to us is probably going to be too warm for an infant. So just lukewarm water. Make sure that if you fill a bucket or a tub or a kiddie pool, that after use you always dump it. Typically, kids like water and they navigate toward wherever a water source might be. So you don't want them to go back after a fun day in the kiddie pool when your back is turned and they go back to that and think that they, can get back in. So just make it a rule to empty that so that if a kid were to fall head first in to like a tub or a bucket, even the toilet, their head is the heaviest, largest part of their body, and they can't always get themselves pulled back out. So therefore, they are at risk for drowning. So just make that a good practice. Make sure if there are pools that there are self-latching, self-locking gates and fences around those pools, security systems, maybe on sliding doors that would alarm if it's open. And we just need those barriers, those extra layers of protection so that kids don't have access to those areas. And again, knowing CPR and basic water rescue skills are important. If you vacation around water, if you, are on a boat, if you live any kind of area like rural that may have a pond, but sometimes it's even just little creeks, and after flash flooding with a lot of rain, there can be hot water. So just being cognizant of all of those different types of dangers, especially with young children around. Fire burn safety. This is one that we need to be just put into practice, and making sure that we have an adequate number of working smoke detectors in the home. We need to have them on every level of the home. We need to have them in every bedroom. It's always a good idea to sleep with your bedroom door closed, to make sure that smoke and fire has a little bit of can stay away from that particular sleeping area. That gives you, again, some added protection when you sleep with your door closed. Have a fire escape plan. Talk about that with all the adults in the home. If your smoke detector goes off, where's your meeting place? Who's going to grab which child? And that way there's no confusion as to, who's doing what in those very few moments that you have to react if you're actually in a structure fire. And the chances that it will be at home are very likely. So practicing a home fire drill is strongly suggested. Just remember, microwaves are ovens. And so, if you're microwaving any kind of baby food that's been stored in the fridge and gotten cold, or bottles, which we don't recommend doing that with microwaves, but just making sure that you test the temperatures of those before offering them to kids, babies, because there can be hot spots in there. So making sure that happens each and every time, because you don't want there to be, a burn to a baby's mouth. If there's alternate heating sources, especially during the winter time, you just want to make sure that you have gates and those types of things in place so that the child being unbalanced, and again, that thin skin, they can burn very easily, can't wobble and fall and touch something that's very warm. So be cognizant of space heaters. Most of them will turn off if they are knocked over, but if on for a long period of time, some of those screens can still get hot and can cause burns if like touched. Matches and lighters need to be stored up and away. Kids can play with things and even sometimes by accident actually light them. So you want to make sure that any type of, anything related to fire, candles and that kind of thing, that they're used away from children. Choking is something that is very relevant and is something that can happen and does happen quite frequently with very young children. Of course, that's the thing that babies do. They see something, put it, grab it, find it, and it goes straight into the mouth. So that's just one of the ways that they explore their environment. So you want to make sure by maybe even getting down on your hands and knees that you're looking around on their level, what they see. So making sure that nothing's on the floor, no small pieces or parts or, pills that have been dropped, anything like that. So just, again, just going through some of those extra steps to make sure that kids don't have access to anything that's dangerous. Um, if you have small kids and big kids in your home, you want to make sure that, again, that there are practices in place where if they are playing with games that may have small pieces and parts like Legos or uh, game pieces, marbles, anything like that, that they are played in a separate area away from where small kids will be, so that those kids don't get access to those small pieces. Food, you want to make sure that they're chopped very small so that if they aren't chewed and swallowed, that they're not going to obstruct the airway. Certain toys and games, do have warnings about small pieces and parts, and we need to follow those warnings that manufacturers give. Magnets can be very dangerous, and a lot of games for older kids do use magnets, and even some for toddlers use magnets. But we want to make sure that those magnets don't get swallowed. And again, there's no access to very young kids who may put those types of things in their mouth. Cords and strings can be very dangerous just because they can wrap those around their neck. And then you see a picture there of a small parts tester. So if it fits in there, that would mean that item is a choking hazard. But what we have at home is just this cardboard toilet paper roll. So if anything fits inside of this toilet paper roll, it is considered a choking hazard. So you can just kind of do, a test of different things to see if it fits the criteria for a choking hazard. So again, keep one of these handy and just use that as a test for things. Button batteries are something that we're seeing more and more kids presenting with and having very serious injuries and sometimes fatal injuries. So you see some of the pictures of things that have those button batteries, a lot of things that have to do with kids, even some kid toys, even though they may have the screw on back where the battery goes. If that's too loose or it ends up coming off, those batteries can be very small, less than the size of even a dime. But even ones that are a little bit larger, like what you see in the picture there, if swallowed, can cause breathing issues, would cause burns in that soft tissue in the esophagus and in the stomach and bowel. So those types of things start to happen very quickly just because it is a battery. So if it's not witnessed, sometimes it takes a while for that to be diagnosed. So it can, again, be very serious for a child. So just being aware of what you bring into your home that has those button batteries, keep remotes and key fobs and things like that away. And especially like with grandparents, if there are hearing aids and things like that that are in use, to make sure those little tiny batteries are always out of sight, out of reach. So again, just being careful and aware of some of the injury risk for young kids. Sometimes, we are, grateful, we're thankful that we're able to reuse something that someone else has used. And even if it's in good shape, we know that that's a reality in our world. So we just want to give a reminder that you want to make sure that anything that is used, that you check for any kind of recalls to make sure that there isn't something that is considered unsafe. A lot of times things that are several years old, safety standards have improved, and now the newer type of equipment of similar products have better safety features. So we always want people to use the safest, greatest thing instead of something that is old and may not have those improvements. It is illegal to sell anything that's been recalled, but if you're buying something at a yard sale, someone may not even be aware. So being very careful about things that are secondhand, that you're using them after checking out that they are actually safe for use. And there's some websites there that you can go to. There is potential for poisons. That is something that we see in very young kids. So medicines, of course, cleaning products, personal care products, and then just lookalikes. And we're going to talk about each of these so that we understand exactly what we're talking about a little bit more. What we need to be careful about when we're administering medication to very young kids is one that we want to make sure that it's okay for a very young child to take certain medicines. There's really not very many medicines sold over the counter that are safe for infants. So unless it's prescribed by your pediatrician, I would stay away from those things, or at least call and ask if it's okay to give. But a lot of those medicines, because they're all liquid, you have to be sure that you're using the correct dosing device when you're giving that medicine. So you see there like the syringe and the little spoon. We want to make sure that we're drawing up, because usually those are tiny amounts, that we're drawing up the correct dose, because we don't want to be overdosing those children, and we don't want to underdose them as well. So just knowing that a teaspoon is not the same as what we get out of the knife, fork, and spoon drawer, or what we use when we're baking. And even like the little cups that are for products that are for older people to take. So if you don't have the dosing device, you usually can get those at the pharmacy when you're getting your prescriptions picked up. And typically they will include that, but just making sure that you're using the correct dosing device. And even some medications like children's Tylenol, infant Tylenol, it will have the dosing device that comes in the box. But you wouldn't use the Tylenol dosing device to like administer a children's Sudafed or something. So again, just being very careful about the dosing and paying close attention to the amounts, and checking and double checking again that it's the right medicine, and read the labels. I know a lot of people don't take the time to read all of the information that comes with medications or on the box, but we really should be informed about the medicine that we're giving our children, to know the warnings and the risk, side effects, and that kind of thing. So I would encourage you all to do that as well. Here is the poison control helpline. So it's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's free and confidential. You can put this number in your phone and have it available. It's a pretty easy number to memorize, but if something's happening, you may be frazzled and can't recall that number. But, sometimes there might just be, something that a kid has got into, you think they might have got into, and you might want to just call them just to say, what should I do if they did get into this? And they will be able to give you some good guidance as to, watching a child or going to the emergency room, and even, emergency steps. You would want to call 911, of course, if it was anything. But, sometimes, they'll say, don't make the child throw up. And like with the button batteries, they will tell you to do certain things that will help maybe prevent that burning as well. So a good option for people to get some quick help in those emergency situations. Keep medicine in their original containers. You don't want to, it's not very good practice to take medicine out and put them in your like AM and PM. I know it's convenient, but when you start to have kids, you want to make sure that you kind of know what kind of pill it is, how many you started with and how many's now left. So in case you have to go back and count. So, leaving them in the container that they come in also has a level of child resistant packaging, if you will, so that they're harder to get into, as opposed to maybe something that you're using for your daily pill reminders. So, think about, some of those things that are in place to protect kids. We don't want to take that layer of protection away. Again, storing medicine, up, out of sight, away, out of reach. So kids can't access that. Kids can't tell if something is, the blue Gatorade that they're used to drinking, or if it's some sort of cleaning product, because they can't read. So it just looks familiar. And if it's just sitting out on a table or the floor, they may mistake that and take a drink of it. Again, reading and following product label instructions. Be careful of lookalikes, just because, again, kids, they see something similar. but it may not be the safe product that they're used to. Discard O products, and again, knowing the poison pill number. When we talk about infant safe sleep, this is the one place that we typically leave children unsupervised is in their crib. So there's a few things that we want to talk about here in order to make sure that it is in a safe environment for babies. We've heard for many years now that babies need to be put to sleep on their back, and that's for every nap and every night sleep till they're at least 1 year old. Of course, when they're very young, they're not rolling. We want to make sure that they're on their back on a flat surface. When babies start to roll over, when you see them rolled over on their tummy, you can flip them back over. And then when they're able to actually roll over and then roll themselves back again, you don't have to be quite as concerned, but we want to make sure that babies go to sleep on their back. And we're going to talk about that just a little bit more, but on a firm, flat surface in the crib or bassinet. That's not on an adult bed that may have, a soft mattress and have all the comforters and blankets and pillows and things. So it needs to be in their crib. So a firm mattress in their crib with a fitted sheet, and that's the only thing that should be in there. So all toys, blankets, pillows, anything that's soft, even buffer pads aren't sewed anymore, should be completely empty except for the baby. And because we know baby, can get cold, we don't want loose blankets in the crib. So now there are what we call wearable blankets so that you can put the baby in the crib in one of the wearable blankets. And so that keeps the baby warm, and it's actually on them and, zips on. And so that is what the baby uses as a blanket. When we swaddle babies, we only swaddle them till they are able to turn over, because swaddling usually means that the arms are down by the side. And so we need those arms free. So when they start to almost be at the stage of rolling over, we want to stop that swaddling with an infant. So just be mindful of paying attention for when that milestone is about to occur, because they need their arms loose so that they can use that to get themselves turned over one way or the other. And then there are some wearable blankets that their arms can be out. So you can free those arms and still use a wearable blanket. You want to room share and not bed share. We know that there's a lot of danger with co-sleeping with babies. Parents need their rest, and they need to be able to go into, a deep sleep and not, sleep with one eye open or closed with a baby tucked in their arms. So when there's, adults in the bed, again, pillows, blankets, a lot of that soft bedding. Babies can, kind of scoot, and they always want to go to where it's warm. So they'll gravitate towards that. And again, if you are exhausted and you go in a sound sleep, you could roll over on the baby. Baby could fall out of the bed. Baby could, be wedged between the bed and the wall. And we know that those are very preventable types of injuries for babies, and they typically will have some bad outcomes related to that practice. So again, putting the crib or the bassinet beside the bed in the same room is perfectly fine, but you just don't want to put them in the same bed with you. You want to make sure that that crib is, again, a current crib that meets today's safety standards. If you a grandparent, you've held on to your son or daughter's crib and want to use it for your grandchild, that's probably not the best idea, because again, in that time span, there have been huge improvements to crib safety. Now we don't have the cribs that you can move up and down. You have to reach over. We still want to make sure that kids can't get wedged, so we have that firm mattress that fits in the bed where a child can't go fall through, or through the rails. So again, thinking that someplace where baby is left unattended, you want to make sure that it's absolutely a safe environment. So here's what I was talking about with the back to sleep, and a lot of people think because we did this for so long years ago, is putting baby to sleep on their belly. But if we look anatomically about what happens, especially if a baby were to spit up, just anatomy wise, you can see that the esophagus is lower than the trachea. And the trachea is our breathing tube, and the esophagus is our food tube. So the trachea is above. So if the baby spits up by gravity, everything is just going to stay down. And of course, if they're laying on their back, their airway is nice and open. They're able to get good oxygen exchange instead of their face being buried against something or even face down on a mattress where they're rebreathing the carbon dioxide, which then slows breathing. And when your breathing slows, your heart rate slows, and it just causes that whole decline effect when babies start not to be able to oxygenate well. So then you look at the picture on the right, when the baby is on their belly, their trachea is on the bottom and their esophagus is on the top. So if the baby were to spit up, again, by gravity, that falls down, and the baby can aspirate by when they breathe and suck in any kind of food that the baby may have spit up. And then, of course, we don't want that to happen because it can cause a lot of issues with choking. And then, with getting into their lungs, it can cause some illness as well. So that's just a little brief explanation for why we want babies on their back. Again, so if babies roll, and that's something that is a milestone that we always look for that to happen. But up until 1, we always place them on their back when we put them to sleep. And then if they roll back, you can gently reposition them to their back again. But then once they begin rolling both ways, you can just kind of leave them where they are with that, knowing that their crib is empty, and you don't have to worry about suffocation risks because there's no toys or pillows or blankets in there. So again, important to sleep on their back each and every sleep. Again, safe crib, you want to just make sure that it fits today's safety standards, and that some of them there, you just want to make sure that it is a safe sleep environment for baby. And then these are just some pictures where you kind of see, comforters and bumper pads and stuffed animals, and you can just kind of visualize if a baby were rooting around in there, how they could maybe get themselves wedged in a way that they wouldn't be able to breathe in either one of the pictures with the X. But we want to make sure that the crib looks just like the one there in the middle, only the baby with the fitted sheet on a firm flat, and it needs to be flat mattress. There's our wearable blankets, so we don't need any other kind of blanket. The baby just gets fitted in there. And of course, they come in different sizes, so you want to use the right size wearable blanket for your baby. Again, swaddling, you want to find a do, use that light blanket. They usually teach parents how to swaddle in the hospital. But again, once the baby starts to act like they're going to turn over, show those signs of rolling over, you want to stop swaddling and use the sleep sacks. And again, we don't want babies to overheat. That puts them at risk for sudden unexplained infant death. So we want to make sure that we don't put hats on babies while they sleep or actually inside. So we want to just be sure to pass that information on to new parents and grandparents as well. Room sharing is recommended, and again, it can decrease the risk of SIDS by 50%. And then, of course, it also reduces the risk of any kind of co-sleeping injury for babies. So just put them beside you. You can reach over and pat them, or grab a passy. And pacifiers are actually recommended as well for new babies to help decrease the risk of SIDS, just because it keeps the tongue down. So again, room sharing is recommended. We want to avoid products that aren't for sleep. So there may be products that are used for a baby, loungers and different things like that, but they will have warnings that they're not for sleep. And then just some of the things here, like the cameras and the baby monitors, we just don't want people to rely on those. You still want to be able to check on the baby, make sure that if a baby isn't newborn, that you're getting up every 2 to 3 hours to feed them, that you're not relying on them to just necessarily wake up. You need to go check on them, and not, again, rely on these types of products. And there's just some pictures of some unsafe sleep products. Consumer Product Safety Commission and the American Academy of Pediatrics think that babies need to sleep on their a flat surface, so anything that has an incline that can, make the head bob forward, we don't recommend. And there's the new standards that came out in 2022 about all these products having to have strict warnings about sleep in them. So if baby's in that, let's say the swing or the lounger, you want to move them and put them in the crib, and not let them stay asleep in those products. Again, not designed for infant sleep. Car seats are not designed for sleep as well. So if you get home and baby's falling asleep in the car, and you take the carrier with the baby in it inside the house, you don't want to leave the baby in the car seat, because again, that is a product that is made for transportation, and it is not designed for sleep. Of course, babies do sleep in car seats in the car, but it's because the car seat is installed at a certain angle so that their airway is nice and open, and the recline is perfect. You take it out of the base of the car seat, then that changes the recline. So again, just reminders that the only safe place for a baby to sleep is in the crib, play yard, or the bassinet. And that even means not on, parent's chest or something, napping on the couch. So sleep, it should be put baby in the crib. Tummy time is recommended. It's something that you should be doing with your baby, but do it supervised. And then, of course, babies sometimes at a very early age don't enjoy tummy time, but you should still do it anyway. But it just helps them to get some good practice with rolling, and then, of course, on their belly. But again, under supervision when we do that. If there's pets that are in your household and they're not accustomed to young children, you want to start thinking about how to acclimate them to that type of environment. And I'm talking about the pet. So, bringing home the blanket that maybe has the scent of the newborn on it before they actually are discharged from the hospital. But just know that even the best pets sometimes can react poorly to, a baby. They can be jealous. The crying can be upsetting to the dog. There's a lot of different things that can go on, but just remember, all animals are unpredictable, and you just want to make sure that you're paying attention when your cat or your dog or whatever your pet is around your infant. Just because we may love our pets, we may think that they would never hurt your baby. But of course, we've all read the stories about just that exact thing happening. So, just make sure you're paying attention and make that introduction, and, love on your pets so that they don't feel left out. But also make sure that your child is adequately protected at all times in those households. Car seats. Of course, we want to make sure that kids are adequately protected while riding in the car. And of course, what we have that is a safety device that's going to protect them are the child safety seats. And these are the 5 things that the car seats do in order to protect the child. Of course, it holds them in the vehicle, restrains their body over the strongest parts, which would be over their strong hip bones, their collarbones. And so we want to make sure that we're using those 5-point restraints. It spreads the crash force out, allows the body to slow down gradually, allowing those belts to stretch so that it's not a sudden stop. And then, of course, protecting the head, neck, and spinal cord, which we don't have good medicine to fix. So just the basics of car seats is, of course, one is, the right car seat. So you want to make sure that it's the car seat that fits in your vehicle, that the history, it's not been in a crash, you're able to use it correctly. So you want to make sure that your child's age and weight and height are within guidelines for that particular seat. So looking at the labels, making sure that it's the right type of car seat for your child. And of course, with an infant, we're talking that they're going to be rear facing. And so we want to make sure that the caregivers know that children should rear face for as long as possible, even if they can rear face when they're 3, even up to 4 years old. That's the safest way to travel. A lot of car seats now go rear facing from 30 to even 50 pounds in the rear facing direction, just because, again, it's the safest way to travel. So, if you want to do that for that extended period of time, look for a car seat that has a higher rear facing weight limit. They've outgrown the car seat height wise when their head is within 1 inch of the top of the car seat. So, of course, they're sitting in the car seat. So, when they say height, kids are different sizes. Some have long legs, some have a long torso. But while they're sitting there, they're outgrowing their car seat height wise if their head is within 1 inch of the top of the car seat. And at that point, you want to start looking for another car seat that protects that head, because you don't want their head to go start being above that. But again, rear face for as long as possible. There are different types of car seats that rear face. There's the rear facing only, that's the carrier and the base. There is a rear facing convertible seat, and that's a seat that can go rear facing and forward facing. And then there's an all-in-one seat that goes rear facing, forward facing, and even a booster seat. So that we call those all in one. So, just making sure, again, that for the direction, you're making sure that your child fits the car seat. Of course, all car seats need to be stalled in the back seat. That's the safest place. The center of the back seat is great, but when you have more than one child, there's only one center location. So just wherever you can get a tight fit in the vehicle, that's where you want to install the child safety seat. But again, in the back seat. Installing can either be with the vehicle seatbelt system or the lower anchor system. You can, follow the directions in your vehicle's owner manual about how to correctly install a child safety seat in the vehicle that you own. There's places you can go to get help. SafeKids offers car seat vending station where we help caregivers learn how to use their car seat. Fire department has some techs who help with that as well. But you can get help if you think you need it. But installing your child safety seat so that it doesn't move more than 1 inch from side to side or front to back. So it needs to be a pretty solid installation. And then the harness, which is kind of like the seatbelt webbing that's part of the child safety seat. You want to make sure that the harnesses are pulled snug and you can't pinch any excess webbing. So if you can visually see any excess looping or you can pinch any of that, then you need to make it tighter. And then when the child is rear facing, the harnesses need to be in the slots in the back of the car seat, either at or below the shoulders. So just think of kind of like up and over, kind of tucked down, so that the child doesn't move in a crash. So those are some of the key highlights of how to correctly use your child safety seat. But again, there's help if you need it. Again, the recommendation for riding rear facing as long as possible. And just again, paying attention to what that rear facing weight limit is, and encouraging caregivers that if their car seat goes to 30, 40, or 50, that they try to extend that for as long as possible. And I will say this, that sometimes, there's concern with parents when kids start to get some long legs, that their legs are going to be injured in a crash. But, kids can put their knees up, they can crisscross applesauce, but we're not seeing lower extremity injuries with kids with long legs that are still rear facing. So, again, we've got good orthopedic medicine where we don't have, excellent brain, spinal cord injury recovery with kids. So we always want to make sure that, rear face for as long as possible. And a lot of the newer car seats are coming out now with a recommendation that you can't use a seat in the forward direction until they are at least 2 years old and around 30 pounds. So we're hoping that gets kids at least, 2 years of riding rear facing. So you will start to see that on the newer seats that are coming out. after June of this year. It's going to have the 2 year age um, on the labels, and then also it's 26 and a half, but most of the car seat manufacturers are just bumping that up to say 30. The child has to be 30 pounds before riding in the forward direction. So those are the types of seats. The rear facing only seat with the base. You can purchase extra bases for other people who may be transporting your child. The convertible seat goes rear facing and forward facing. The all-in-one, again, is that rear facing, forward facing, and booster. Looking at the heights and weights limits for the child safety seat that you're interested in purchasing and using. Again, a lot of those seats go up to 40 and 50 pounds in the rear facing direction. In the forward facing direction, most every car seat goes to at least 50 pounds, but most of them go to 65. So, you're talking about using car seats for probably close to 10 years after your baby comes along. There's some pictures of the different types of car seats in case all of this is completely new to you. Rear facing's on the left, the convertible seat that you can use rear facing or forward facing. And then that all-in-one is kind of a larger, bigger seat. But again, I would encourage you to get help with a child passenger safety technician through SafeKids or the fire department. But if you would just read your manual, there's a lot of good information in the instruction manual, knowing how to use your seat the correct way, and then also the vehicle's owner manual of your car. If you go to that child safety seat installation section, there's a lot of good information for you to find there to help with the installation piece. This is one of the things that we talk about, especially this time of year, is pediatric vehicular hypothermia. With kids being left in car seats. And we bring this up not because we think anybody is, a bad parent, but we do know that it happens already. This year, there's been 3 children who have died being left in a hot car, not any in Kentucky, but there's been 3 nationally so far this year. Typically, there's close to about 40 kids every year that die from being left in a hot car. More than half are forgotten by the caregiver, which most of those have been out of a routine. Another parent was supposed to have dropped the child off at daycare, but forgot, muscle memory, went straight to work, being distracted, and forgot to drop the child off, and then was left in the vehicle all day. Infants get in the car and they go to sleep typically. And so we know that if they're quiet in the back seat, it may fall off of, someone's radar, especially if it's not their normal. And also because when we started putting airbags in the front passenger seat, airbags are dangerous. And so that's why now, all child passengers ride in the back seat to prevent that type of injury from airbags. So again, coming up with a system that, can give you some of those reminders sooner than later if a child were to be forgotten. Sometimes kids can gain access. They can, get out of the house and they can get in the car and then they can't get themselves back out. So what we recommend for, all caregivers is if a child goes missing, first, if there's water, check the pool, check the pond, check the bathtub if that there was water left. So check the water sources first and then start checking the car. That would be the second place. But hyperthermia happens very rapidly. Doesn't have to be a hot day for the temperatures to get high in a car. So typically within 10 minutes, the inside of a vehicle goes up about 20 degrees. So again, it's pretty quick. And then a small portion of these are knowingly left by the caregiver. Maybe they didn't have childcare, they went into work, just didn't want to take a sleeping child into the store, so they left them. So a lot of reasons that this happens, but all 100% preventable because we should take kids with us. So creating those reminders if there's a change in routine, check with someone to say how did drop off go, because something just quick and easy with a quick phone call could save a child. Set something up with your daycare that if a child doesn't show up and you haven't been told that they were sick or on vacation, that daycare calls the parent saying, we're missing Sherri today. And then once again, that might cause someone to remember that, hey, that the baby's in the back of my car. So putting a shoe, a cell phone, something that you wouldn't normally go into work without, a purse if you're a lady, your lunchbox, whatever that is, so that you would open the back door and see the child. Putting a reminder on your phone, so that, at 8 o'clock, start of your shift, it goes off like, daycare drop. So again, just some simple reminder can save a child. So those are just some suggestions that we have here to kind of help with creating those reminders. These are our car seat fitting stations that we have through our SafeKids program. You can call for an appointment, and we give you information about how to use your car seat for your child in your vehicle. So you can reach out to us if you want to make an appointment to get that one-on-one curbside information. So I think that takes us to the end of the presentation. So I'm going to stop sharing and see if there's questions in the chat. Does anyone have any questions? I know I went through that pretty rapidly.
I have a question. Do you know if UK offers any CPR trainings like for infants?
I know if you are a healthcare like nurse, we have to do, every 2 years we have to be trained. You can contact community services, the Lexington Fire Department.
Okay.
They do some like layperson, I think it's called Family and Friends CPR training. But American Heart does it as well. American Red Cross does it as well. And all of those, have programs here in the community. So, hopefully you would never need to do CPR on an infant. Choking is a real possibility just because of the nature of what kids do and putting everything out. Eating, kids will gag, but that's natural because that's meant to happen. But clearly, choking, we want to be able to do the right type of choking, and choking with the back blows and the chest thrust. Infant, that is for under one and under, and then over one, you would do the Heimlich just like you would for an adult.
Right.
But maybe not as forceful because they're little, but I would strongly encourage, everyone. And I think now it's a prerequisite in high school health that they learn CPR in choking. So, but if you now want to get some education or certification with that, I would reach out to community services or American Heart or American Red Cross for that.
Okay, thank you.